Hello, fellow book lovers. Welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, my name is Eline, and in this video, we're going to go through 10 new releases. So these are all books that release in the year 2026, and I basically made a list of the 10 books that I am most excited to get to in the new year. The first book on my list is Agnes Obert's Mystical Cat Shelter, and I hope I pronounced that name correctly. This is by the same author as the Emily Wilde trilogy, which I still haven't read, but it's on my TBR. This is a cozy fantasy romance, and it takes place in the 1920s. The main character runs a cat rescue, which honestly, that sounds already so fun. And I don't know if the cat shelter is magical, but it's definitely set in a magical world. And it seems that she has to work together with some magician called Havelock, who has a bit of a dark past. And Havelock has a magic shop, which I think is also an illegal magic shop, but I'm not entirely certain about that, in the same building as she has her cat rescue. And his magic shop is in jeopardy at some point. And since her cat rescue is in the same building, so is her cat shelter. So she ends up needing to help Havelock to save his shop and her cat rescue as well. And obviously, I guess there's going to be a romance between them. Honestly, you had me at magic and cats. So I'm excited about this one. It comes out in February 26th, so that is also relatively soon. The second book on my radar is Once and Again by Rebecca Surley. This is expected in March 2026. And I've never read anything by this author before, but I just clicked on the book on Goodreads and I read the synopsis and it sounded super fun. So that's why it's on my radar. It is a magical realism romance. It is about 3 generations of women in the same family, and I think we're only following the point of view of the youngest, but I'm also not entirely sure because they were all 3 in the synopsis. Basically, they can turn back time, but just once. And so our main character's mother has already used this power to save her father's life at some point, but our main character, Lauren, she has not used this power yet, and she's kind of like waiting for the right moment to use this power. And she is already married to someone, but then she runs into her first love, and she starts questioning her choices in that department. So I'm predicting she is also kind of debating whether or not to use the power to turn back time for her love story, but I mean, I'm not sure, but I feel like that's implied. So that's Once and Again, coming out in March 2026. The third book on my list is The Book Witch by Meg Shaffer. This is expected in April 2026. The main character is a witch called Rainy, which, what a fun name. And it seems that it is her job to travel into books to fix mistakes and then travel back to the real world, all the while changing as little as possible within the book. So there are also certain rules in place, like she's not allowed to eat, drink, sleep, I think, in these books. And also, she is not allowed to fall in love with a fictional character. So we all know what she's gonna do. She is gonna fall in love with a fictional character, obviously. So there is this one specific character, which is the detective in her favorite detective series, and she is not allowed to see him because I think she's been with him before or something like that, or she already kind of likes him. There's already something there, and if she's caught with him one more time, she will be expelled. But then her grandfather goes missing, and of course, there's only one detective that she trusts to be on the case. So it seems like we're gonna have some forbidden love in here, which is super fun. And also the traveling into books aspect sounds really, really fun to me. And possibly a little bit of a murder mystery. Well, not murder, I guess. He's not dead, but like mystery element to it. and some romance as well. So I feel like this is going to be a mix of a bunch of different genres. It's basically, it has mystery, it has romance, it has fantasy. So super excited about this one. That was The Book Witch, coming out in April 2026. The fourth book on my list is called Mad Mabel, and it's by Sally Hepworth. This book is also expected in April 2026. The main character is an 81-year-old woman called Elsie. And let me read to you this part of the synopsis. When it comes to murder, no one ever suspects little girls or old ladies. And Elsie Mabel Fitzpatrick, once a little girl and now an old lady, has a strange history of people in her life coming to a foul end. That's all it says basically on the synopsis. It doesn't give much more. And I'm so intrigued. I think she is just going to be such an interesting character to read about. I wonder if maybe she's like a psychopath, because it does specify little girls as well as old ladies. So I think maybe we're going to get like her whole life story, and she has already like murdered someone when she was just a little girl or something like that. I feel like it kind of implies that with the whole thing of like, no one ever suspects little girls or old ladies, and now she's an old lady. But I feel like it kind of implies that she murdered at least someone when she was an old lady, and at least someone when she was a little girl, and probably a bunch of other people in between. So I think maybe it's going to be a story of how she's like kind of like a psychopath and kind of just like murdered a lot of people and always just got away with it. And if that's the case, I'm so down, because that sounds very interesting. I just think the cover, the title, the synopsis, everything just gives like interesting, but like very fun, murdery vibes. You know what I mean? So that's Mad Mabel, coming out in April 2026. The next book on my radar is Enormous Wings by Laurie Frankel. This is expected in May 2026, and it's another book about an old lady. This one follows Pepper, who is 77 years old, I think, and she's persuaded by her 3 children to move into a retirement community. And at first she doesn't want to go, but then she goes, and actually she falls in love and gets pregnant at 77. And that's basically what the story is about. But also, since she is pregnant at 77, this causes for a lot of like media things. So like there's a lot of news reporters and like camera people coming to the retirement community and all wanting to know the story and like print the story. So I think it does have a little bit of an emphasis on that as well. And the synopsis definitely hints at her wanting an abortion, but not being allowed to. It doesn't specify this, so I can't be 100% sure, but it does say this. Soon, Pepper has some hard decisions to make, and some she's not allowed to make. And it says as well that the book is about female agency and bodily autonomy. So I think that definitely hints at her wanting an abortion, but living maybe in a state in the US that she isn't allowed to have an abortion. So I think this book might be a critique on the banning of abortion and kind of using this pretty outrageous example to illustrate the downsides of banning abortion. But besides that, it also just seems like a very interesting and very unique story. Number 6 on the list is Love Me Tomorrow by Emiko Jean. This one is expected in February 2026, and it is a young adult rom-com, or so it says on the Goodreads page thingy. And if I'm being completely honest, that is not my preferred genre. But the concept intrigued me, so I put it on the list anyway. This book is about Emma, and Emma is 17 years old, and basically she just doesn't believe in love anymore, which I feel like that's so overdone. So when I read that part of the synopsis, I was like, oh, here we go again. I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm the problem because it's done so much, and I feel like it's done also with popular books, so clearly it works. But for me, it just feels so overdone. But okay, hear me out, because we're not done. Her parents divorce, she's over love, she doesn't believe in it anymore, she thinks it's not for her, blah blah blah. But then she receives a note from a boy claiming to be the love of her life, writing to her from the future. So I thought that was interesting. Interesting enough to put it on the list. I'm not like thinking this is going to be a 5-star read or anything, because I think it has a lot of things I potentially will not enjoy. I generally don't like young adult very much anymore. I generally don't like rom-coms. I don't like the comedy part in rom-com. And I don't like the start where it's like, oh, I don't believe in love. But the magical realism element sounds interesting enough that I want to give it a try. The seventh book on the list is The Astral Library by Kate Quinn. This one is expected in February 2026. And I think it's also a magical realism. There's a lot of magical realism on this list for some reason. We follow our main character, Alix. Alix grew up in the foster care system and she's currently working 3 jobs to make ends meet. She loves to read, specifically fantasy books. That's kind of like her form of escapism. And then she stumbles upon a hidden library where, and I quote from the synopsis, the desperate and the lost escape to new lives inside their favorite books. So another book about traveling into books. But then the library is threatened by some sort of enemy, and Alix goes with the librarian on a quest to save the library. It says, Alix and the librarian flee through the Regency drawing rooms of Jane Austen to the back alleys of Sherlock Holmes and the champagne-soaked parties of The Great Gatsby as danger draws inexorably closer. Which sounds so interesting. I love that we're getting references to classics, and I think it will be so fun, especially the ones that I have read. Because I've read a few Jane Austen, so I think that might be super fun. And I wonder if we're going to get the characters as well, or just the setting. I do think this synopsis is quite similar to The Book Witch. I mean, there are clearly a few differences, because this doesn't seem to have the mystery element of like the missing grandfather, and this doesn't seem to have the romance element as well. Maybe if I read the books, they are actually not that alike at all, but there are definitely some similar elements to them. So I wonder if they're going to be similar. I don't know. So anyway, that was The Astral Library coming out in February. That's a word that's not difficult to say at all. But if you think about it too much, it becomes very difficult to say. Or maybe that's just me. I don't know. Either way, let's go on to number 8. That is Queen of Faces. And this is expected also in I don't want to say it. Okay. February. See, if I think about it, I can't do it. The second month of the year. This is expected in the second month of the year. And this is the first book in a fantasy series. So that's going to be super fun. I'm always excited to try new fantasy series, specifically fantasy series that I haven't already heard everyone talk about. And I think it's a young adult as well, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to read part of the synopsis actually, because that's a bit easier. Annabelle Gage is trapped in a male body and it's rotting from the inside out. Fun. In Kaimor, where the magical elite buy and swap designer bodies like clothes, Anna can't afford to escape her tattered form. When she fails the entrance exam to the prestigious Paragon Academy, her last hope of earning a new body implodes. As the clock ticks down to her last breath, she is forced to use her illusion magic to steal a healthy chassis, I guess that's a body, but I've never heard that word before her own kills her. But Anna is caught by none other than the headmaster of Paragon Academy, who poses a brutal ultimatum: face execution for her crime or become mercenary at his command. There's a little bit more in the summary, but I think this summarizes like the main plot pretty well. Oh, and at the end it also says, as Anna is drawn into a tangled web of secrets, the line between villain and hero shatters, and Anna must decide which side is worth dying for. Ooh, I love that. That sounds like we might get some morally gray characters, which I absolutely love. This premise sounds super interesting. Like the whole swapping bodies thing that creates a very direct link between wealth and health. I think it's super interesting. And it seems like we're getting an academy setting, which I love. And it also seems like we're getting morally great characters, which I love. And so I'm super excited about this. I definitely will be getting to this in the new year. So that was Queen of Faces coming out in February. I did it! Okay. That's not a big deal. I need to calm down. Number 9. This is not about us. I didn't write the author down for some reason in my notes. I'm so sorry. I'll put the cover on the screen either way so you can see the name of the author. This is expected in February 2026 as well. And this is a literary fiction with a heavy focus on family drama, family relationships. It says, when their beloved sister passes away, Sylvia and Helen are unmoored. A misunderstanding about apple cake turns into a decade of stubborn silence. Busy with their own lives, divorces, dating, career setbacks, college applications, bat mitzvahs, and ballet recitals, their children do not want to get involved. As for their grandchildren, impossible. And it also says, sharply observed and laced with humor. This Is Not About Us is a story of growing up and growing old, the weight of parental expectations, and the complex connection between sisters. This sounds like it could be a very interesting portrait of a family. I am curious whose point of view we're getting, because it doesn't really make that very clear in my opinion. It definitely seems as though the sisters are kind of the main point of the story, but then because it specifies what the children and grandchildren are all doing with their lives and that they don't want to get involved, I think maybe we're going to get it through their POV, or maybe we're going to get a bunch of different POVs. I don't know. That remains to be seen. So either way, that's This Is Not About Us, expected in February. And the last book on today's list, number 10, is Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy. This is expected in January, and I'm quite interested because I read her memoir as well, and I really liked her writing style. This is described as a sad, funny, thrilling novel about sex, consumerism, class, desire, loneliness, the internet, rage, intimacy, power, and the oftentimes misguided lengths we'll go to in order to get what we want. So that's a long list of things, but all sounds very interesting. And it is about a 17-year-old who has an affair, I think. At least it definitely reads in the synopsis that she wants to have an affair. I don't know if she actually has an affair, but I think she does. It says the word want in the synopsis. She wants her older married creative writing teacher. And I think she's like in love with him, but it also doesn't specify that, but it gives that kind of vibe. Honestly, it gives the vibe that she's kind of like obsessed with him, maybe just wants his attention or something like that. And it says that it is a rich character study of a yearning 17-year-old who disregards all obstacles or attempts to overcome them in her effort to be seen, to be desired, to be loved. Definitely it is giving unhinged woman wanting affection. And that's perfect. That's just what I want sometimes in a book. This just sounds like a very interesting read, and definitely sometimes I really like to pick up a book that is about a character that is kind of unhinged and crazy. So that is Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy. And that concludes this video, kind of, because those were all 10 books on my list of anticipated releases. I might make a part 2 further on in the year, because I think most of these books are all releasing in the first few months of the year. I think the latest release date on this list was May. So I think as the year goes on, more books will be announced. And so I will make a new list of maybe another 10 books that are releasing in the new year that I'm excited to get to. But also, for being realistic, can I actually get to all of those books? Probably not, because there are also so many books that have already been released before 2026 that are on my radar as well. So I don't know how many new releases I actually am going to get to. But either way, these books are on my list, on my radar. They sound interesting to me, and I will likely pick them up in the new year. If there are any books on this list that you also have on your radar, please let me know in the comments. If there are any other books that are releasing in 2026 that are on your radar that were not in this list, please let me know. If there's anyone specifically that you think I would like or that you think I should read, please let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I will also see you in the next one. Bye!